We all heard of the Lewis and Clark expedition, but we all may not know what it is exactly. Well, it was a long and carefully organized journey that was designed to explore the Louisiana Territory. It was led by Meriwether Lewis, who later chose William Clark to be the co-leader. Meriwether Lewis was a Virginian army captain, so he had learned the ways of the Indians and he knew how to survive in the wilderness. He also was a careful surveyor, someone who makes observations about land, and he loved nature. Therefore, President Thomas Jefferson thought he was perfect to lead the mission. Louisiana Territory was a very dangerous place, so an experienced leader was needed to make the expedition a success. On June 20th, 1803, Jefferson wrote a letter to Lewis that mentioned the information needed for the journey. He wrote about the objectives of the expedition, to learn about the geography, plants, animals, and other natural features, to establish friendships with the Native Americans who lived there, and to find if there was a waterway between the Mississippi River and the Pacific Ocean. He specifically said that in order to become friends with the Indians, they had to treat them in a friendly fashion and show them that they were trustworthy. He also mentioned to start preparing trade with them. In spring of 1804, Lewis and Clark started their journey with 3 boats and 40 men. Most of the men were Americans, but some were French-Canadian. There was one enslaved African-American named York. In mid-July, they reached the mouth of the Platte River. And by early August, they met Native Americans for the first time.
Throughout Lewis and Clark's journey, they had a lot of problems to face. One nice Indian named Sacagawea helped them greatly. When Lewis and Clark stumbled upon Sacagawea, she agreed to stay and help them translate so Lewis and Clark would understand the Indians. Later on in their journey, they would come upon a tribe of Shoshone Indians. The leader of the tribe happens to be Sacagawea's brother. Because of this, the Shoshone give them horses that help complete their journey to the Pacific Ocean. Without these horses, I am led to believe it would have been much harder to get to the Pacific Ocean. The journey began in spring of 1804. Lewis and Clark headed up the Missouri River from St. Louis. An easy venture it would not be. As they neared the Rocky Mountains in Montana, the river begins to shallow and fill with rocks. They also had to cross a mountain barrier that was extremely hard to cross. Next, they came upon the Great Falls of Missouri. It was very hard for Lewis and Clark to navigate around the falls, and it took a longer time too. Next, they had to cross Bitterroot Valley in the middle of October. During this time, snow was falling, and they had a low supply of food. They couldn't even hunt because animals were scarce. After a number of other challenges, Lewis and Clark finally reached the Pacific Ocean in the middle of November. Then they would have to take more observations there.
Lewis and Clark could not cross the mountains during the winter, so they had to stay at the Pacific Ocean until spring so they could cross the mountains. After the winter, they brought dugouts, which were boats made out of hollowed-out logs. But their timing needed to be perfect because they needed to get across the mountains when there was no snow. But if they waited too long, the Missouri River would be frozen by the time they got there, and they'd have to camp for the next winter. They began to travel up the Columbia River against strong currents. During this time in the journey, the Chinookan Indians were very bothersome because they kept trying to steal supplies from men. It almost caused hostility between the people. They decided to split up and cover more ground. They met up again when Clark accidentally shot Lewis in the leg. He survived and they were reunited. They rode the Missouri River back home. They were gone for 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days, and finally they made it back to St. Louis and were hailed as heroes. During this time, a man named Zebulon Pike explored the southern part of the Louisiana Territory. He climbed up 2/3 of another mountain in the Rocky Mountains, and he turned back. The place he turned back is known today as Pike's Peak. Later, he was arrested by Spanish troops in New Mexico under suspicion of being a spy. They released him a few months later.